All right, welcome back to 2.2 conditional statements. We're going to do the second part of it today. Just note that this one, once again, is that if-then statement. So if hypothesis, then conclusion. We ended class yesterday with this video.
I have one.
Which I'm going to mute right now. But the whole part of this video was about I mean what I say is the same thing as I say what I mean. And then the characters went on to say that's definitely not the same thing at all. And then the video actually ends with this character right here saying a statement that I sleep when I breathe and I breathe when I sleep. And that definitely is not the same thing, right? Most of you, hopefully you breathe when you sleep. Okay, but I think you all know that the reverse is not always true. When I breathe, I sleep. Otherwise, you guys are breathing right now, you'd be asleep right now. So we can't always reverse those statements. So let's start out with a video. Okay, so that video was said if there, if there is an apocalypse, there is mayhem. So we're going to be using that phrase as we continue here. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to talk about the negation of the following conditionals. So you see the little squiggles in front of the P and Q. Those denote not P implies not Q. So we already did if P then Q, but this is going to be if not P then not Q. So if I study math, then I'll get a good grade. We're going to just change that sentence slightly to if I do not study math, then I will not get a good grade. So we're basically just rewriting the sentence, only we're making them say not in both of them. So go ahead, pause the video, do B, C, and D. All right, so for B, we have if it is raining, then Mike will get wet. So we can say that if it is not raining, then Mike will not get wet. And for C, if Sean does not go to school, then Sean does not wake up early. Once again, we're just adding the negation. We're making both of those negative there. So when the hypothesis and conclusion are both negated, and think about when we do something that's the opposite, right? That's the not version of it. We call that inverse operation, and this is just the inverse right here. All right, so let's watch the video about the inverse. There we go. All right, our next one. So we want to swap the hypothesis and conclusion. So this isn't negating it, it's swapping it. And just a reminder that the if and then do not get swapped because the if and then are not part of the hypothesis and conclusion. So for this first one, remember our I study math is our hypothesis and our conclusion is I'll get a good grade. So all we're doing this time is we're literally swapping the underlined blue and red part. So instead of if I study math, it becomes if I'll get a good grade, then I study math. So we're literally just swapping the blue and the red. Go ahead, pause the video, and try B, C, and D if you can do that one. So for B, if it's raining, then Mike will get wet. It's just going to swap the blue and the red to be if Mike will get wet, then it is raining. And C, when we swap the blue and the red, the hypothesis and the conclusion, we get if Sean woke up early, then Sean goes to school. And what we do is we call this one the converse. Okay? And that converse means to switch. All right, here's our video about this phrase here. All right, and our last one. So this time we are going to negate and we're going to swap both of them. So once again, you'll see our notation there. We have the squiggles, which mean not, which means the negation. And instead of if P, it's going to be if Q. So for this first statement, if I study math, then I'll get good grades. So reminder, we want to swap the blue and the red and add in the not. So it'll be if I will not get a good grade, then I do not study math. So swapping and negating it. Once again, go ahead, pause the video, try the next two. All right, part B, if it is raining, then Mike will get wet. So we swap, negate it. If Mike will not get wet, then it is not raining. And part C, if Sean did not wake up early, then Sean does not go to school. And we call this one the contrapositive. Now, if you do have your green formula sheets that you got, or if you print them offline yourself, you will see for Unit 2, all of these words are on there. And they do kind of give you some helpful information as you're going about and trying to think of all these statements. So, let's watch our video. Okay, and here we have an example that's going to put all four of those things together. So here's our statement. Sorry about that, I fast forwarded it. So our conditional statement here is a large carnivorous dinosaur is dangerous. And if we turn that to an if-then, right? If there is a large carnivorous dangerous, then it is dangerous. And we're going to take that statement and we're going to do the inverse, the converse, and the contrapositive with it. Go ahead and watch. All right. So let's then keep working with these and see if we can write all the sentences and give the truth values of them, whether they're true or false. So with this following conditional, go ahead and write the inverse, the converse, and the contrapositive of it. A reminder with the inverse, you are negating your P and your Q. With the converse, you're swapping your P and your Q. And the contrapositive, you're doing both. You're negating and swapping. So remember, our hypothesis for this one is going to be today is the 11th, and then our conclusion is going to be tomorrow is the 12th. So again, go ahead and pause the video and see how you do. All right, so for the inverse, we're going to negate both of them. So if today is not the 11th, then tomorrow is not the 12th. With the converse, we're going to swap. So if tomorrow is the 12th, then today is the 11th. And with the contrapositive, we're going to put those two together. We're going to negate and swap. So if tomorrow is not the 12th, then today is not the 11th. All right, so let's talk about truth values now. Now, we already did the conditional truth value, and we said that one was true, right? You can't ever have today being the 11th and then tomorrow not being the 12th, right? Every 11th of the month has always meant that the 12th was tomorrow. So we know that's going to be true, so go ahead and figure out if the other ones are true as well. Okay, so for the inverse, if today is not the 11th, okay, so let's say today is something like the 25th, then tomorrow is not the 12th. Well, yeah, if today's the 25th, then tomorrow is definitely not the 12th. That's going to be true. Converse is very similar, right? If tomorrow is the 12th, then today is the 11th. So that's going to be true. And the contrapositive, if tomorrow is not the 12th, then today is not the 11th. Okay, so that's also going to be true. Let's do another example. All right, if an animal is a robin, then it is a bird. Go ahead and fill out the inverse, the converse, and the contrapositive for this one. All right, pause the video if you need to. So if the animal is not a robin, then the animal is not a bird. That's negating it. Our converse is swapping it. So if the animal is a bird, then the animal is a robin. And the contrapositive is swapping and negating. So if the animal is not a bird, then the animal is not a robin. Now go ahead and think about the truth values of these. Give them a shot. If an animal is a robin, then it's a bird, right? So any animal out there that's a robin is also going to be a bird. And no, I'm not talking about the name Robin or anything like that. So here we're going to have false for the inverse. So if the animal is not a robin, okay, so think of an animal that's not a robin, then the animal is not a bird. So can you think of an animal that's not a robin? So that's true. But then the animal is a bird, right? And so a counterexample for this one could be a cardinal. A cardinal is not a robin, but it still is a bird. So that first phrase is going to be true, and the second phrase false. If we look at the converse, it's also going to be false, right? If the animal is a bird, then the animal is a robin. Once again, a cardinal is a great counterexample for this one. A cardinal is a bird, but a cardinal is not a robin. So it makes the first part true and the second part false. Contrapositive is going to be true. So if the animal is not a bird, then the animal is not a robin. Okay, so if we're talking about an animal that's not a bird, let's say a turtle, right? Then the animal is not a robin. Well, absolutely, a turtle is not a robin, so that makes sense. All right, and question 12, go ahead and try and do this whole one on your own. When you come back, you will see the answers. All right, so here are the answers. Go ahead and pause that video if you need time to write it down. We talked about this example a little bit in the first half of 2.2. All right, so almost done with this. Using inductive reasoning about question 10 through 12, what two conjectures can you make about truth values? Okay. So here we're going to bring back 2.1 and use inductive reasoning. So based on the patterns that you see, are there any two things that you can make, two kind of rules that you can make, two conjectures? Think about it, write it down, pause the video if you need to. All right, so the first one is you can see in all three examples, the conditional and the contrapositive are always the same. So you see if one of them's true, then the other one's true. Okay, if one of them's false, then the other one's false. And the second one's going to be the converse and the inverse are always the same as well. So what we say here is that the conditional and the contrapositive are logically equivalent. And we can say the same thing about the converse and the inverse, that they are logically equivalent as well. And why this is helpful is that you know that those pairings are always going to be the same. So on some of these sentences, the word not can get super confusing. If you look back at that example about the robin, doing the converse with that one is very easier to tell than doing the inverse with that one. So if you know the answer for the converse, you can just put true and false for the inverse based on your answer for the converse. So that shortcut will help you just a little bit if you're able to. All right, and that is 2.2. So there is an LT check, so make sure that you are working on that LT check.